thy perfect love. Word for today is cherish. May 18. I cherish opportunities to share the love of God. It isn't the price of something, like my bowl, sorry, it isn't the price of something that determines its value. It is how much it's cherished. It's not how something looks or what it costs that makes it beautiful. It is the love and wonder I feel that helps me cherish it. Just like the gifts I give, I imbue my relationships with love. I cherish those for whom I care deeply, and I want them to feel cherished by me. I hold the intention for love and connection that is at the heart of my every exchange. Just as I feel cherished as a divine being, I share the love of God through my kind and considerate acts. At the heart of every kindness I extend is the prayer that those I serve will feel cherished not only by me, but by God. And from 1 Thessalonians 2:8, so deeply do we care for you that we are determined to share with you not only the gospel of God, but also our own selves, because you have become very dear to us.
So now is our time of meditation. Let's set aside any distractions. If you're comfortable, close your eyes and take a breath. Become centered and still. Take another breath. Relaxing into the changeless breathing that in, allow any distracting thoughts to gently float away. Release them. There is no struggle in this now moment. And enter the stillness, the silence, and you're present to the perfect changelessness, that presence of spirit. Let's be aware of the oneness of the gentle, loving Spirit of God. Listening to that still small voice. And for a few moments, let's dwell in that infinite love, light, and joy of God. Let's be still for a moment. And let us anchor that truth that we have heard today. And let's take that forward into our day. And for that truth, we are thankful and blessed. We gently return to this now moment.
Feel Never wonder the rainstorm and the rivers are my brothers. The heron and the otters are my friends, and we are all connected to each other in a circle, in a group that never ends. Have you ever heard of cries of unicorn? Or let the eagle tell you where he's been? Can you sing with all the voices of the mountains? Can you paint with all the colors of the wind? Can you paint with all the colors of the wind? How high does the Wackrow? If you cut down, then you'll never know, and you'll never hear the cries of the unicorn moon, whether we are white or copper sing. We need to sing with all the voices of the mountains. We need to paint with all the colors of the wind. You can own the earth and still all you own is earth until you can paint with all the colors of the wind.
I'd like to just take a moment for us to open our minds and hearts, knowing that something I say will touch and change your life. Can you feel it? Right now, things are changing. Everything that you can experience with your senses, it changes. Change is inevitable. The weather, it changes. Our seasons change. Our bodies change. And our relationships. Just look at the news. I'm not really telling you to look at the news, really. But that's what the news is all about. It's a report about changes. If it wasn't, it would probably be called the olds instead of the news. And that's really the History Channel, so that's already covered. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the changes that you as a church community have faced. The loss of two beloved ministers, Reverend Ben and Reverend Anita, in such a short time. And every Sunday, it seems that there's a new face on your platform. And that also may remind you of your loss. And then there's your own personal things that you might be going through, changes that you might be dealing with. And it ends up being a lot. Ecclesiastes 3, chapter 3 says, "There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. Those are just a few of the verses. But as I look at them, I know I only want to experience the good part. That half of the scripture, the laughing, the dancing. Further on in this chapter it says, He has put eternity in our hearts. So in all this change, there is a changelessness, an eternal presence within us all. Rosemary Fillmore said, life is about growth, unfoldment, and change, which gives us the incentive to explore new dimensions of living. That sounds so simple, so easy. It might not be. Let's look at that more deeply. Change and the grief we may experience as the result of changes. It's a process, a journey. When change happens, the natural tendency is to want to get back to the way things were, get back to normal. And often, that's simply not possible. Whenever I hear the word normal, I think of Whoopi Goldberg. She is quoted as saying, normal is nothing more than a cycle on a washing machine. And I sometimes pride myself in not being normal. Maybe you do too. But our society, and maybe we ourselves, encourage getting over it. Let's move on. There are expected timelines in our grief. We get 3 to 10 days off from work after losing a spouse. But we're far from over it. And we might never truly get over it. But we can get through it. Grief to me is more than just a process with a given time frame. It's a journey with stops and starts and bumps in the road and unexpected detours. The Chinese word for crisis is formed from 2 words, danger and opportunity. Each crisis, each loss can be an opportunity for growth. I don't say this to imply that it's easy or to be simplistic. In his book, which I highly recommend, Finding Yourself in Transition, Robert Brunette compares times of transition to whitewater canoeing. The water's running fast over submerged rocks. It's easy to capsize, to be injured. It's difficult. It's even dangerous, but it does provide an opportunity for growth. Have any of you gone whitewater canoeing? Oh, I see a couple hands. Wow. I have not. But I had gone canoeing. The first time was this comfy summer day with my husband down the lazy river. We gently paddled to our destination. It was pleasant, lovely, relaxing. The second time was with my son and his Boy Scout troop. I came along just to be a driver. Just to be a driver. You may already have an inkling of where I'm going with this. I was to drop the boys off at the launch site and then pick them up when they were done. Simply that. Well, we get to the launch site and we count off. Oh, we need one more adult to come in. And Mary, that is you. You and your son get to go together. Did I mention it's early in the season? There seems to be some extra excitement because it's rained for a number of days, and the Wackrow River is exceptionally fast and high. It's early in the season, and so the water is extremely cold. So my son and I don our life jackets and off we go. We pass the first capsized canoe and feel very superior. We carry on at a slow and leisurely pace, but all our troop passes us by, including the now righted canoeists that had capsized earlier. We are fine until we paddle around a bend and see a fallen tree stretching across half the river. Of course, that's the half of the river that we're on. Crisis. Things happen fast. The tree knocks the two of us out of the canoe. The canoe continues leisurely on without us. And we are left holding onto the tree for dear life in the freezing water. We wait and we wait because we are the last canoe with our tree. And after what seems like an eternity, another Boy Scout troop comes along and a canoe takes my son. And as he lets go of the tree, my son turns to me and says, "Bye, Mom." I love you. Like he will never see me again. And for a moment, I wonder, will he? A few minutes later, another canoe comes along to rescue me. They haul me into their canoe like I am a huge dead fish. My fingernails are blue, and my teeth are chattering. But I am soon reunited with my son in the Boy Scout troop. What did I learn from this experience? First, I think I should have learned to say no, but I didn't. But I did learn to hang on. Hang on. Help is coming. I learned to be more grateful for the little things, like dry clothes and a warm, soft bed. And I learned to say I love you whenever possible, especially when saying goodbye. When the waves of change seem to toss us about, we can be anchored in faith and in truth. That's the changelessness that I'm talking about. In her book, A Year of Miracles, Marianne Williamson wrote, "A moment of crisis can be a moment of growth, as the wounded self prepares for transformation. From the chrysalis of my pain, I will forge my healing, the wings of my newborn self." I love that. It describes that process so well. A lot of you don't know, but I am a monarch mama. That means I raise monarchs. I usually start with an egg, so very small, about the size of a pinhead. The caterpillars hatch, I feed them, I watch them grow. In just 2 weeks, they grow from that little tiny pinhead to about 2 inches long. An incredible increase. If that isn't enough, one day, something miraculous happens. They go into chrysalis. They are unrecognizable as the caterpillars they once were. The body that was a caterpillar turns into a liquid like a goop and is rebuilt or reformed into a butterfly, a beautiful That's a lot of change. And you would think after all that change in such a short time, those monarchs would get a break. No, these delicate creatures, after they're hatched, start their trip south, many to Mexico, traveling 25 to 100 miles a day towards their destination, a destination of over 2,000 miles. If a tiny caterpillar can surmount such radical change with such beauty and grace, maybe we can as well. Marianne Williamson also wrote, "When I am internally still, chaos cannot move me. As I enter worldly chaos from a place of internal peace, my stillness works to dissolve the chaos. I need not fear any turmoil in the world as long as there is peace in me." God's eternal peace is the ground on which we stand as we navigate the shifting sands of time. The world is always changing, but God within me is changeless. I am loved. I am safe. I am blessed and protected. As I look upon others and wish them these things, I experience them myself. There seems to be some threads that run through every talk I give. These threads are choice, stillness, and of course love. When I choose to be still, to be quiet, I have the possibility of hearing the voice of God. Isaiah chapter 30, verse 15 says, "In confidence and quiet is your strength." In the revealing word, and I can't do a talk without quoting the revealing word, stillness is defined as a mental state of infinite peace, rest, and tranquility, where man's senses are hushed and he abides in God. Senses hushed. That sounds like withdrawing from the outer and going within to the truth with a capital T. That's abiding in God, in oneness, in changelessness. There are two stories from the Bible relating to loss that I'd like to share. In the book of Ruth, Naomi, her name means pleasantness, my delight, my beloved. Naomi loses her husband and both her sons. She understandably is grieving. Ruth, her daughter-in-law, is determined to return with her to their birthplace, Bethlehem. All the city gets excited at Naomi's return. And Naomi does something really interesting here. She tells everyone not to call her Naomi, but to call her Mara. Mara means bitter, misfortune, calamity, grief. So every time she sees a friend, they remind her of her grief, of her loss. She blames God and can't seem to see any good in her life. Over time, things do turn around for Naomi. Ruth meets and marries Boaz, who is a close relative of Naomi. They have a son, and they become part of the lineage from which Jesus is descended. Naomi is now back to being happy and pleasant. This story illustrates that we always have a choice. We can acknowledge our feelings and process them, or we can hold on to them. 1 Thessalonians says, "In everything give thanks, not for everything, but in everything." Even in the most challenging situations, we can look for some good. Find something to be grateful for. When my husband was diagnosed with cancer quite a few years ago, every morning we woke up and sang, "This is the day the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it." We weren't saying, oh, thank goodness you've got cancer. Thank goodness you're going downhill. But we found something to be grateful for. And I still sing that song every single day now. It's been years and years. The other story from the Bible that I was drawn to is in John 11. What drew me to it was the short sentence, Jesus wept. Jesus was sent word that Mary and Martha's brother Lazarus was sick. Jesus waited 2 more days before heading to Judea. He plainly tells the disciples that Lazarus is dead. And when they finally arrive there, Lazarus has been in the tomb for 4 days. Martha and then Mary go to meet Jesus. They tell him of the passing of Lazarus. Verse 36 has just 2 words. Jesus wept. Those simple words are so powerful. Jesus wept. He demonstrated his humanity, even knowing that he would raise Lazarus from the dead. I feel that Jesus demonstrated humanity and his changeless divinity at that moment, being the great example for us in dealing with our own change and grief, and yet showing us that we can also embrace changelessness. One of my favorite books is God Will See You Through by Mary Hopperly. My husband and I read it often after his diagnosis and found much comfort in the truth she shared. And I'd like to read just a little bit to you. Be assured, dear friend, in this very moment, God will see you through. God will see you through any challenging experience. God will see you through everything in life. God's presence will sustain you. God's love will reinforce you. God's wisdom will guide you, and God's peace will comfort you. Let go of all anxiety and every fear, for God will see you through. Can you feel it? In the whirlwind of change, there is a center of calm, of changelessness, of oneness, peace, and love. At any time, we can choose to go within, to remember that changelessness, the eternal truth, to remember that whatever you are going through, you can move through it with purpose and with peace. When change swirls all around you, you can anchor yourself in that changelessness, in the awareness of the eternal presence of God. Remember, wherever you are, the changeless presence of God is, and all is well. Namaste.
Hallowed
And now is our opportunity to be a blessing and to be blessed. We are in that flow of life and love and abundance. And what we give, we receive. And so if you're watching online, there is a button you can click and you can donate to this wonderful community. And we will say our blessing for the tithes of love that you give.